Was it? No, no, don't go into the videos tab. Don't see how long it's been since I last uploaded. Don't do that. Don't worry your pretty little head. Just come join us. Hello and welcome back. It is I, Lestat. It's me, Mixed Labradorite. Welcome back. If you're new here, do me a solid. Like, subscribe, maybe check out my Patreon if you're feeling inclined. It is very expensive to do your face like this a lot, which I definitely do because I am definitely a full-time goth. My partner and I have moved. We are now in the greater Seattle area, which is a very good place for this look, and I cannot be happier. Today, we are talking about goths. Goths. I am not a goth. I am more goth adjacent, shall we say. Some of my best friends are goths. No, but for real, many of my ride or dies are in fact goth. Here's, in fact, a picture of me with one of my oldest besties. Yeah, I dabble. I'm a goth dilettante. I'm a gothitante, if you will. I don't make a claim to know the culture or the music or the history, but I know some, a little. And that brings us to today, where we are talking not about this kind of goth, but this kind of goth. Oh, what's that? What's that you say? What's your koozie? It is, in fact, a koozie specifically for talking about the mountain goats and mountain goats related things. In fact, when the podcast for this came out, it came out right alongside the release of Goths in 2017, which was funny because it was all about All Hail West Texas and not goths, even though the theme song was, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get to the script and enough of this extemporaneous bullshit. There is nothing that fans of a thing love more than picking that thing apart and ranking parts of it, getting into the weeds. Hell, ranking things is practically its own genre here on YouTube. The more people that love a thing in general, the more arbitrary and, dare I say, vicious the picking apart can get. And mountain goat shitposting, hello everybody, you are the gay people in my phone and I love you, is exactly the kind of space with the combo of love, geekery, and big opinions that fuel exactly this kind of fire. And which album is best, like any music fan group, is a perennial question. But the question of what album is the worst, well, that one has a pretty definitive answer among that section of the fandom, and that is, of course, Goths 2017. And I disagree vehemently. Now there's a word no one knows how to say because we all read it first. Is it my favorite album? No. Is it the one I reach for when I want to listen to a specific Mountain Goats album and not just like a mix? Not usually. But I do have a strong bit of affection for goths, if only because that's sort of the era in which, you know, when this podcast came out, it was sort of a coalescing of Mountain Goats fandom on the internet in places I already was. I didn't have to go find a message board. I didn't have to, go look for a Discord or a forum or whatever. It was already happening in the place where I was. The album is a departure from both earlier studio and Casio eras of the band, and it was made under the arbitrary rules of no guitars, no comped vocals, and no pitch correction. And it kind of landed in the fandom with a bit of a wet thud, which again, I was disappointed by because I thought it was pretty great. Go get two fans of a thing to agree to anything, right? While many Mountain Goats albums have themes, 2015's Beat the Champ didn't just have a new theme, i.e. wrestling, but new sounds. Multi-instrumentalist Matt Douglas joined the fun, bringing his brass and woodwinds with him. And I, for one, count myself among the Matt Massive. There's a playfulness and a joy to his energy that I wasn't necessarily missing before he joined the band, but that I'm very glad is present today. There's just that giddy feeling of, oh my gosh, I get paid to do this thing that I love. which is hilarious when it's, alongside songs about some miserable piece of human experience. But, I appreciate it nonetheless because contrast in all things. And it's really easy to see how just like fucking around in the studio space led to no guitars, no comped vocals, no pitch correction. It's like writing a sonnet or a sestina. The challenge is to see how creative you can be within these narrow, self-imposed parameters. And in the case of Goths 2017, we got Goths 2017, and many in the fandom have never forgiven this terrible crime. The album opens with a thunderous, full-throttle homage to Sisters of Mercy that just absolutely blows the doors off the hinges, and it's just an aural assault. A-U-R-A-L. This opening barrage also contains one of my all-time favorite Mountain Goats lyrics. No haven safer than the one we tore down. It just goes so hard. They didn't have to do that, but they did it for us. Given the album's theme and what this song promises, it gets you ready for, 45 minutes to an hour of deep bass, invocations of Satan, the smell of clove cigarettes manifesting in the room. To reference a deeply problematic character from a scene of a show that has aged like yogurt in a hot car. Well,
people often think a good mix should rise and fall, but people are wrong. It should be all rise, baby.
Obviously, mixtapes and albums are different and serve different purposes and have different intentions. However, the track list for both is created with care and the intent to tell a story. It's there to take you on a journey, for there to be an arc. And as the last notes of Rain in Soho echo down to silence, we arrive at the album's first single. The jaunty, nostalgic, and not even slightly remotely goth at all, except for its title and subject matter, Andrew Eldritch is moving back to Leeds. The subsequent 10 songs sound more like Andrew Eldritch is moving back to Leeds than they do Rain in Soho. Each song is thoughtful and contemplative, teasing and self-aware, and sonically way, way more the result of some jazz noodling than intended to remind us that Bela Lugosi is dead. And played in the order as it's intended, Rain in Soho screams in with the energy of opening credits via flashback sequence. And then the rest of the album is the somber truth of what's happened to the old gang over the last 30 or so years. If you're here for the Mountain Goats play goth music, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Forget goth music. This is music about goths. As the opening song, Rain in Soho writes checks the rest of the album just can't cash. But does it though? I don't think so. I mean, that's why I wrote this. But I also think there's more discussion to be had, as if perhaps that's on purpose. And on the most recent go-round of Goths 2017 discourse, I had an idea. What if, instead of opening with the Sturm und Drang, it started with its last track, called Abandoned Flesh, and it is a song that is, in turns, both silly and introspective, and it sounds like it was arranged by Richard Cheese. Honestly, if Richard Cheese ever covered a Mountain Goat song that wasn't No Children, because that's probably the answer most people would give, it really, you can't tell me he wouldn't go for the one with the lyric, now there's two Jeans loving Jezebel, one for each brother. That just, regardless of song order, it's an album that, as already pointed out, is not really goth in content or aesthetic, but that it's about the subculture itself and its rise and its fall. Right, if you can even say that it's fallen, but the careers and the aesthetic contributions to the world that it fostered along the way. And the vibe of the album itself is less soundtrack to The Crow and more like what gets played at a dive bar at Old Home Week. And I'm not even sure how to properly construct this analogy, but go with me on this one. In reverse order, it feels like, what if instead of, no guitars, no pitch correction, no comped vocals, What if the prompt was, hey, let's write a musical of Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright's The World's End. With Rain in Soho as the closer, it would herald truly that there was no haven safer than the one we burned down. Obviously, that's not what it is, but it's not what it is. In reverse order, the energy builds to a crescendo.
It should be all rise.
With Rain in Soho, which, if nothing else, can feel more complete. Me and my whole one music theory class, I remember you're supposed to, resolve chord progressions, and you're supposed to complete a circle of sorts with a song, and that leaving things hanging leaves the listener feeling uncomfortable and, disliking what they have just listened to. Our hindbrains can find building to a crescendo pleasing and satisfying all they like. But what if the letdown was the point? What if we were really famous for 6 weeks 25 years ago, and we're still grasping tight to that fame and those feelings, but also the rent is due and the car needs work is the point? What if the nosedive off that cliff was the point? What if examining those feelings was the point? What if listeners weren't supposed to be disappointed in the work itself, but were nonetheless supposed to feel the emotions that come from losing that fame, losing that sense of self, however niche? What if, to return to the metaphor of The World's End, the Gary Kings of the audience just didn't want to fucking hear it? The week I began writing this, it was announced that the bassist and longtime creative collaborator, Peter Hughes, was retiring from the band. And this takes on an extra piece of melancholy for me, wanting to write this piece and engage with this content, because Goths 2017 contains a rare Peter Hughes vocal appearance. He has a verse on the song Shelved, which is a song already about stepping back from a music career because of, financial or life reasons. Hughes's verse is especially poignant given the givens. One of my favorite tracks on the album is Wear Black. I don't even know how to properly describe without just showing the lyrics. It is one of my favorite additions to the live show, when it is also a song that is usually played just with lead singer John Darnielle and Matt Douglas. It is very sort of jazz noodly. It is very introspective, and it is, all of the things I have already said about the entire album as a whole. But it's got this wry sense of humor to it. And it's just so self-aware, and it's so it's just a sweet song, honestly. If you're an adult and you spend time around counterculture spaces, there's a sweetness, there's a sense of joy to see old metalheads and goths and punks in their 50s and their 60s. There's a fuck it, we're still here kind of, joy to it. Wear Black is very that. Wear black when it's hot outside. Wear black when it's cold. Wear black at the intervention. Wear black, wherever. It's just sort of this moment of love who you are, even now, however many years or however much time has passed since it was the focal point of your life, not just your aesthetic because it's been your aesthetic the whole time and that's what your closet's full of, As a further tangent, because we're back in extemporaneous times, there's a really wonderful bar in Austin called The Lost Well that is getting kicked out of its space. It opened after another bar had closed that had a lot of the same people involved with it. It's literally got a mural outside that said, the friendliest bar you've ever been too scared to go into. And because it really does sort of have that black metal, everyone in there has, a bazillion tattoos and piercings, and, there's a line of motorcycles outside. But it also is a second home to so many people. It was just such a beautiful space. Was, in addition to a metal bar, it was a goth bar. It's a MotoGP bar. It's a Seattle Seahawks bar. There's always something else. There's always another subculture. There's always another group that has found a place there and grown because it had that space to be there. Losing it? Fuck, that sucks, man. And that's a lot of what Goths 2017 is about. It's poignant. One of the things that needs to be addressed is that the reason Peter Hughes is retiring is because of COVID. being a touring musician has now added the extra danger of continuous reinfection and continuous increase of the possibility of long COVID. And I don't blame a guy in his 50s for being like, you know what, I'm gonna go. Like, I can't, the amount of things that I am still not doing and the amount of places I'm still not going because of COVID is upsetting. And now it's cost my favorite band its fucking basis. Like, what? Please mask in public. Please do it for me. I know there's so many horses out of so many barns. All of this is sort of long, windy and rambly in defense of an album that apparently not many people like, but I do. And like, also, people are just allowed to not like things. That's allowed. There doesn't need to be a reason or an explanation. You know, you can just sort of bounce off of something. That's fine. No band or artist is going to have a 100% hit rate, even with their absolute diehardest of fans. And there's whole eras of some of my faves that I just have memory hold. Couldn't tell you a single song. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, but sometimes it also just takes YouTube video essay levels of mental gymnastics to suss out.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching us. Please like, please subscribe. Please wear a mask at the next event you attend. Thank you. Good night.